I've generated more than 2 million B2B leads, and I know that that is a huge brag. And that's not in a single campaign. That is across 2 decades, across every channel you can think of, and a few you probably can't, and through a lot of changes in what works and what doesn't work in lead gen. And there's one pattern I keep seeing in businesses that are struggling to grow, and that is that they tell me they've got a lead gen strategy when they really don't. All they have is a list, and this is what it looks like, okay? They are on LinkedIn, they are running some ads, they've got a blog, they've got a newsletter. Somebody in the company somewhere is setting up a podcast, and there are a couple of email sequences going out. And they've got this like trickle of leads, and they're always very excited when a lead comes in, but they never know when leads are going to come in, and there's no one channel that they're like, oh, thank God for that, it's bringing in all the leads, right? So this all looks like a lead gen strategy, and it all costs money, but nobody actually knows what the strategy is. They'd struggle to tell you in a sentence, and nobody knows what would happen if you turn this channel off, because nobody's really thought about that. So that's not a strategy, that is activity, frantic activity. And that is not the same as growth. It looks a little bit like growth because everyone's busy and stressed, but it's not growth. And to prove my point, yesterday I spoke to a founder of a consulting business, and he told me that marketing doesn't generate leads. But he also has a marketing department of 3 full-time people. And I was like, why are you paying 3 full-time people to do marketing if it's not generating leads? Like, what is the point of this? So this video is about understanding what a lead gen strategy actually is, so that you can develop one, so that you can build much more predictable flow of leads. So what is a strategy? Well, a strategy is the thinking you do before you act. It's the set of deliberate decisions about who you're targeting, what you're saying to them, where you're reaching them, and how all the pieces fit together. So you might think, yeah, that makes sense. I know what a strategy is, but this is what I learned in business school, and it has stuck with me for the last 14 years. A strategy is also a commitment to what you're not doing. So strategy is the word we use for choosing, and in choosing something, we have to say no to everything else. Strategy is about drawing your red lines, what you won't do, what you won't get distracted by, and where you won't go, who you won't be. It's very hard to say no. And the red lines are what create the space to focus. And then when you can focus, that's where you find real success. So if you can't tell me what you're not doing, you don't have a strategy. You have a list, and that list is just going to keep getting longer and longer until you are totally overwhelmed and out of your depth, right? So here's an analogy that I use to explain strategy. Imagine you need to get from London to Paris, right? Your objective is the destination. It's Paris, that is fixed. Your strategy is how you're going to get there. Are you going by road, by air, by train, or by sea? Because once you've made your choice, you've effectively said no to all the others, because you can't fly and take a boat at the same time. And then the tactics are just the decisions inside the strategy. So which airline, business class or economy? Are you taking a morning flight or an afternoon flight? And where businesses go wrong is they start with the tactics, they pick them at random, they try them all, they don't really connect together, and then they find they're not in Paris, they're in Kent. And Kent is lovely, it's the Garden of England. But if you need to be in Paris, it's freaking annoying to be in Kent. Strategy is hard, it involves deep thinking and making tough decisions. Getting on with tactics feels productive. It feels like you're doing something. So it's much easier to be like, let's start writing LinkedIn posts than to sit down and work out who you're trying to reach, what you're saying to them, and why they should care, right? And posting on LinkedIn looks like work. Sitting at your desk, deciding what you won't do doesn't feel like work. It feels like leisure time being squandered. And there's this cultural push towards activity at the moment, right? Every newsletter, every consultant, every agency, every Substack is telling you about the next thing that you need to be doing. SEO, GEO, cold outbound partnerships, paid social, podcasts, events, agents, communities, and it's exhausting. The natural response is to start doing things because you've got FOMO. Just do anything so that you don't feel behind, right? But the problem is that activity without a strategy is just really expensive. You spend money on tactics that don't fit together. You burn out your team. You do generate some leads, you lose some, you generate some more, And after 2 years, you still don't have a grip on this. Like, you don't know what your lead gen strategy is, and you can't predict whether you're going to get more leads or fewer leads next month. So how do you build a lead gen strategy? Well, there's a method, and it's a method I've used repeatedly in my own businesses, and it's the method that generated me 14 leads in the last 2 weeks and 6 sales before I'd even got started, right? And it's really about answering 8 questions. They're very simple questions, but you've got to really think hard about answering them. You can't just plug them into an AI, get your answers, and think you've got a strategy. The questions force the thinking creates the strategy, right? So the first is, who are we trying to reach? And you want to spend a lot of time here. If you can't answer this clearly, nothing else will make sense. A vague customer avatar makes every downstream answer vague. So the no here is as important as the yes. Who are you not for? What kind of customer is it a no? Second question, what are we selling them? What's the offer? Not the product, but the offer, the thing that they actually buy. And what offers are you walking away from because they don't fit with this customer? How do you make your offer so unbelievably compelling that they won't say no? It's an easy sell. 3, what stories are we telling them? What do you stand for? What do you stand against? The stories you choose are also the stories you're refusing to tell. How are you telling your stories in a way that stops you sounding like everyone else? 4, where are we going to reach them? Which channels? How are you picking them? And I believe that you should pick them deliberately and introduce them in sequence. That means you get one channel right before you move to the next. 5, with what resources? This is so important. Time, money, people, tools. What can you actually sustain? Strategy that ignores resources is just fantasy because you have to be consistent. You have to be able to deliver on the strategy week in and week out because almost no one strategy is an overnight success. So even when your lead gen strategy starts to work and the leads start coming in, you're actually just getting started, right? So now you're busy servicing those leads. Who is going to keep the lead gen strategy going? Because you can't abandon that. 6, how does everything connect? This is the one most businesses skip. Tactics in isolation do not compound. A LinkedIn post connects to a newsletter, which connects to a podcast, which connects to a sales conversation. If they don't connect, you're just running a bunch of like mini strategies that aren't really strategies. They're just tactics in parallel. 7, how will we know if it's working? This is really obvious, right? Like, what are you measuring? What's the leading indicator, not the lagging one? And what are you choosing not to measure because chasing it would distort the strategy? You need to be following some key metrics every month and adapting based on the feedback. 8, what's our rhythm? How often, how consistently, how reliably? This is where you set it all up in a way that's realistic and manageable for your business. If you answer all 8 of these questions clearly and you're honest about the trade-offs you're making, you have the beginnings of a strategy. If your answer to any of them is all of the above, you haven't answered, you've avoided. When you have a strategy, the work feels different. It's calm. You know what you're doing this week. You know why. You know what's not on the list. When something new comes along, you hold it up against the strategy and decide. You don't just panic and go for it. When you don't have a strategy, the work feels like chaos. It feels reactive, it feels scattered, it feels expensive, and it often feels pointless. Strategy is subtraction. The businesses that grow the fastest are the ones that say no to the most stuff. So if you want help building your lead gen strategy, there are a bunch of ways to work with me via the AI Edit. You can sign up for one of my training sessions. You can join my B2B Lead Accelerator where we build this together. You can hire me as a consultant, or you can do it yourself in the AI growth community.